His Holiness always says that do not pay importance to the differences. That is what he called secondary differences, but pay more importance to the primary similarities. Primary principle that we all shared qualities is a better word. Primary shared qualities that we all have. So this is a very important message.
So, welcome Rinpoche.
Thank you,
to Yeshe Norbu, my training center. And your full name is Tulku Tenzin Gyurme Rinpoche. It's a long name.
Yeah. I think I'm the ones with a shorter name.
Okay. Some other lamas have longer names.
Longer names.
Yeah. But also you also called Tengyur Rinpoche for a bit shorter. Yes, and have you been a lot to Europe before? Is this?
This is my first time to Europe, and how it ended up is the actual plan was to attend a conference in New York.
Okay.
This whole year is supposed to be the celebration of the 600 years of the passing away of Lama Tsongkhapa.
Yeah.
And Sergei Cultural Center, which is one of the branch organizations of Sergei Monastery back in India. So we have the center in New York.
Yeah.
And they are planning to have a celebration where there will be public talks and general public, mainly for telling them about the life stories of Lama Tsongkhapa and how his teachings on compassion and wisdoms are so relevant even nowadays.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to attend it, and on the way I always had a wish to make a stop over in Europe for some time.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended here this time.
Yeah, I'm very happy. And Lama Tsongkhapa, can you mention something about who Lama Tsongkhapa was for people who don't know?
Yeah, Lama Tsongkhapa was one of the later, if we look at the Tibetan history and flourishing of Buddhism to Tibet, especially after the late 12th and 13th centuries, he was one of the pioneers and one of the greatest scholars who have worked so hard in coming out with wonderful, what should I say, literature in the field of literatures. So Tibetan Buddhism came to Tibet in the early 7th centuries during one of the Emperor Tenzin through collaboration with Indian pundits, translators. And then later it came again in 12th century because those from 7th century to 10th or 11th centuries, the Buddhism has flourished a lot in Tibet, involving translating of hundreds and hundreds of Buddhist texts that were available in Sanskrit at that time. But many of those started to degenerate, that I can say, and they were not able, due to some non-very dharmic rulers, to do that. So Buddhism almost vanished from Tibet at that time. So then it was again invited, again in the 12th century, one great master of Adisha came to Tibet, who was one of the also great masters in Nalanda University at that time. So then through them and after Lama Tsongkhapa, when Lama Tsongkhapa was around 13th to 14th century, so he was one of those special scholars and the monks who's responsible for one of the greatest literatures that we have today, especially on the emptiness and compassions. So that is who Lama Tsongkhapa is. And he is even today remembered for his great literature books and the great Tibetan style of studying that we have established now over many centuries, especially which involves a lot of memorizations and debate. To tell you in one word, the Geshe degree programs actually happened. It was before, but the full, what should I say, the course and everything, turning Tibetan monastics into real learning institutes. So Lama Tsongkhapa has one of the greatest roles to play in that. So he is remembered for that great service to the Tibetan people in general, especially to the preservations of Buddhist literatures.
And I think many people maybe when they think about like a Buddhist monk and meditation, they think, maybe, you close your eyes and something, you chant and something magic happens.
Yes.
But now you're talking about study.
Yes.
And for how long have you studied in monastic?
I joined the monastery in late 1989. I think it's starting of 1990s when I'm around 8 to 9 years old. And as soon as I joined, so first 1 year I spent at my house, though because I was too young to join the school at that time also. So then I spent my first year trying to learn the art of memorizing and the techniques of memorizing, and also we did a lot of memorizations and also learned the Tibetan scripts, readings, and so then after that I joined a monastic school for 8 years. Then after the main monastic university to study the philosophical studies. I think now since 1990, around 20 years, so I've been studying.
And why is, so that's a lot of, but why is studying important in a Buddhist context, and what is the purpose?
I think, so it all comes down to one very basic concept, which is all over the world, when people think about Buddhism in general, or Lord Buddha in particular, we all know over the world as a source of meditation. So associated something with meditation or mindfulness. Yeah. But one important point when it comes to meditation that Lord Buddha was emphasizing, and also Lama Tsongkhapa and all the great Tibetan and all other scholars, is that meditations are of two types. Yeah. One is what we call the focus meditations, and which is more related to shamatha, and another is analytical meditation. Yeah. So people always were, interested and attracted to what we call a karma-abiding meditation, that too not completely, where they think the meditation as a source of just staying quietly and chanting something, or just coming outside from all the problems and just spending some time
and experiencing more calm.
Yeah, calm like in your heart, heart, and so that's what we have misconception about meditations. Yeah, because it was a technique, but the Lord Buddha himself and the Lama Tsongkhapa, and they were stressing more on analytical meditations. So analytical meditation involves a lot of investigations and examining the facts. What happens when you sit down for meditation? What are the problems that are coming to you? Why you are feeling sad? Why you are feeling stressful? So you have to sit down, and when you sit down and you started to analyze yourself to find the causes within you for your happiness, your joy, and everything. So then you started to learn. So for that, to study is very important. Without studying, it is not possible. So, and just a small study or just a very short study or a brief study will not make you perfect. So that's why study of the 5 subjects we call in Buddhist studies. So those courses were designed very early in Nalanda University around 2nd to 3rd century in India. Those were designed by those Nagarjuna and the great Indian scholars. And when they came back to Tibet, they did some polish and included some course. So it was very well-designed courses, which involves first 3 years basically about training your mind, studying basically about techniques, how you can master the art of studying through debates and memorizations and so on. So that's why it takes a lot of time for us to study.
So you spend 3 years before you actually start the actual study?
Yes. Wow. Yes. That is basically for learning techniques. So when any kind of, a small project or any kind of commitments that you made, we usually look at it from 3 dimensions. The actual commitment or the actual action, which may be the main duration, but the more important one is the preparations involved with them. What goes before that? For example, when you sit for an actual meditation, what goes before that, during that period, how you should be training your mind, how you should be shaping your motivation. So if your preparation period is very good, then you're actually in Western saying also, well, plan is half done. That's the same thing here. So That's why before you start the real study in Buddhist philosophical studies, if you just jump into the main studies, then you may feel discouraged. Oh, this is too much for me. This is something completely different for me. And you may find it completely irrelevant sometimes. And because sometimes your studies involve studying something which do not make much sense to you at that time. Or may not be very scientific, something that can be proved at that time, especially those things related to mind and so on.
Yes.
So therefore, the preparation was necessary. So in these 3 years, you were basically taught about the techniques or how you put your syllogism, put your reasonings, how you learn all those arts. Then you were taught about the basic foundations way of thinking. So after that, when you join the mainstream of studies, so you can really catch up everything. You can get the essence and out of it very quickly. So that was the whole point of the 3 elementary years.
And you also mentioned that Lama Tsongkhapa and these teachings could be relevant in a modern age. That there's something here for modern society, and what's in what way?
I feel that so when you read, for example, a particular text written by Lama Tsongkhapa, for example, there is one text called Entering the Middle Way. So the title may seem very religious or something very philosophical text. But what I used to feel is that those texts were written based on a specific culture and religion traditions, and which is actually meant for a special set of students. So that's why it has to be wrote in that order. So, but when you look at those texts from a secular point of view, so the major content of that text is explaining about emptiness. And emptiness, in short, is about trying to solve the gap between what is reality and what is appearance. And what is our expectation and what is reality. So these things are something which is relevant to our day-to-day life and our hope and our reality. So you can say expectations. Sometimes we expect too much from our life or anyone, and we forget or we never pay much attention to what is the reality. So to draw a distinction between our expectation and reality or appearance in what way, so things may appear something to you, but that may not be the reality. So this teaching is all about emptiness. So when he starts the emptiness teaching on emptiness through different reasonings, which are all secular in some way, that when we apply those reasoning to your own self, when you sit back and contemplate about your own self, when you undergo difficult times, or even when you are happy. So sometimes when we are happy, we forget about everything. So then that happiness doesn't last long. So how we have to make sure that the happiness that we enjoy lasts forever or longer. And so balanced, I can say. So those kind of techniques are very well explained in this text, Entering the Middle Way philosophy. So how you can really have a middle way in everything that you do. So for that, for example, a guidance that he provided is about 6 perfections. So when we say 6 perfections, sometimes it sounds a little bit religious, but generally it is telling us about 6 steps to a happy life. So 6 steps in the first, if you are generous, how it helps you. And if you, in order to achieve anything, how we have to make effort, perseverance. In order to pursue anything, sometimes we do not have the, we do not have the habit of pursuing something with effort, but we want a result. So when you go after the result without undergoing the little hardship that you may have to make, so then the problem comes there, you become stressful. So he tells us about these are the steps. If you want a result, you have to follow these certain steps in your life. So these are just the small examples that I can point from those texts. So take out all the secular, or any points or topics or techniques which are relevant to one's own practice, and we can use them and apply in our own life, in day-to-day life. That's what I feel. This is just one example.
Yes. And what would be, for a normal Western person with you have a job and a family, and
yes.
You probably can't go to a monastery for 20 years and you spend a lot of, maybe too much time in meditation, but what would be some advice or some practical tips of how to start to apply this kind of philosophy in your life, in these methods?
I think the main idea behind studying for 20 years is the main idea is to preserve these traditions. So that was the main idea, to set up these religious institutions. But to get benefit from these teachings, so you do not need to be a monk. So you do not need to be a members of the Sangha community, or even you do not need to be a Buddhist to get practical advice or whatever you want from these teachings. Usually what I meant is, of course, we have to be practical. Yeah. That's the most important thing. But in real world, when we step out in real world, so real world is filled with anxieties and stressfuls and competitions. So taking into account all those things, how we can balance our life, that becomes very important, as you're asking now. I feel that there one thing is, from the day one, what we have to learn is to accept reality. I think that is the most important key principle that we have to learn. Many people do not expect what is reality. And so they know that you could only afford that much, or you could only do that much. That is your reality. Yeah. But you forget your reality, your ground reality you forget. And your expectations or your greed or your desire overcomes that reality. So you do not accept, you are not able to recognize yourself fully. So that really makes you do a lot of things that are actually beyond your needs. Yeah. So these are the few principles, but a good way to start is to initially, we have to read some literatures, some books, for example, as you mentioned yesterday to me, The Art of Happiness by His Holiness. Such kind of books we have to read. Then, of course, you have to take notes from these books. That's what I used to tell my friends, that whatever things that really struck you, some things will pop up and really connect with your
Make sense to you.
Yeah, make sense to you, connect with your life, as depending on your professions. So you take note of those things and create your own, a book, a book for your life. Yeah. Something like you can call whatever name you want. Yeah. So in that book, you only take what is relevant to you. There's any kind of advice that comes from any traditions, be it Christians or be it non-believers or anyone, you can take it. Yeah. Then you have to learn how to put that into order and start always with very small. So make it one day's practice. And one day's practice in the sense I'm saying not every day. Yeah. Try it for once a week, for example, once a month. Then we can see how it goes. Yeah. So in this way, I think every individual can do that. So when you see a result, a small peace of mind that you get through this, so rewarding, when you see rewarding, you feel energized, you feel encouraged, and you feel inspired, and you wanted to do more. Yeah. So that's how you have to step on, I think, before you do anything. Yes. There's a few things that I thought.
And I know also that that you have been involved a bit with discussions with the discussions happening within what's called the Mind and Life Institute that was founded by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Yes. And you have been involved in some discussions with scientists. Yes. And what is your view on what's the relevance of this discussion between modern science and Buddhism?
I really feel that these discussions are so important in some way because the modern world at present time is in such a way that everybody will accept what scientists say. Because science is actually based on evidence, and it's not associated with any particular groups or organizations or faith. So that's why we feel that whatever the scientific outcomes or evidence says, we are ready to accept it. And what Buddhism says, on the other hand, of course, when we say Buddhism, always, as His Holiness says, we have to draw a distinction. And discussions that we are having with the science is always about Buddhist science and modern science. We are never having discussion with Buddhism and science. So this one point we have to make clear. So when we speak about Buddhism, so Buddhism is its own religion part, its own practice part, which doesn't have anything to do with modern science or anyone else. It is a complete, what should I say, a private business of individual people. So that shouldn't be mistaken. So that's why, but within the Buddhism, within the Buddhist literatures, if we read those wonderful texts and the sutras, as I was telling you now, there is a vast amount of secular things. There's a vast amount of those great wisdoms and the knowledge. If we put it into use, those things with the scientific research, that has immense potential to benefit human beings. So Mind and Life conferences and other discussions between modern science and the Buddhist science, that is the only purpose, to bring a common a kind of solution to the people. For example, if I give you an example, one key product or the solutions or the result that we found through this discussion is that in Buddhism, it speaks a lot about compassion. So how compassion helps you. But compassion is being taught in a slightly different way sometimes, which may seem so difficult for an ordinary person to achieve. Compassion towards numberless sentient beings. And sometimes when your target is too high, so then you feel discouraged. Oh, that is not for me. Because you wanted to start with something, because that is what is the most important. So then Buddhism, those teachings says that when you feel compassion, so compassionate, that moment, not just that moment, even after that, it has a strong imprints on your mind and your body, which will make you stronger, which after that you will have less chance of getting influenced by the other emotions, negative emotions. So it makes you happy, in short.
Like a psychological intervention.
Psychological intervention or something. But we've been saying that for years. But we are never able to prove with scientific evidence. But now science, on the other hand, do research in brain scanning and images, and through that, they show that when someone practices really compassion, and at that moment, due to the changes that happen in their mind and everything, they can prove through the scientific evidence and the result that it is good for you. It is good for your mental health being. It is also good for your physical health. So that is before us. These are the products that we see. And another example is, we've been always telling anger is bad for our health. Anger is bad for you. But it has nothing to do with religions. It is a general concept that we all understand and we all accept. But then how come that, because in Shantideva's text and also in Lord Buddha's text, they have mentioned that among the different emotions that we have, like, for example, we have stinginess, we have intolerance, and then we have desire, we have pride. Those are all negative emotions in some way. They harm you in some way. But others have some way to benefit you. For example, desire. So if you are a desireless person, then you cannot achieve anything in this world. So you need to have some positive desire. But anger is presented in such a way in those texts that it doesn't have any part of, beneficial. It is totally destructive as a whole. But at the first time when I read that, I was thinking, it is really true or not.
Yeah, many people would say that you need some anger to make some change.
Yeah.
Those kind of
so I don't know whether that's really anger or not.
No.
So that's up to us. But then later, as His Holiness was also saying, they're always saying that there was one psychiatrist called Aaron Beck.
Yeah.
And he always says that when someone gets angry, the image that comes in front of you is 90% mental exaggeration.
Yeah.
So that is really scientifically proven.
Yeah.
So you're not seeing the reality as we discussed from the beginning.
Yeah.
When anger controls your mind, when you are over desire, negative desire, so you're not in the positions mentally and physically. And physically, I don't worry much. Mentally, it overpowers your mind and it makes you see much more than what reality is.
Yes.
So you're not able to see the reality and you're not able to accept reality. So when you go against what reality is, then all the problems started coming. And physical abuses, physical actions, I really don't worry much because physicals are a kind of product, depending on what your thoughts go in your mind. So it's important to look at that. So this is now scientifically proven that it is really disastrous to you. And that is what the Buddhist text has been saying for years and for centuries. So the Buddhist way of this beneficial secular ethics and universal values, if they are backed by scientific evidence and so on, then that will be really kind of the ethics that we are looking forward to in this world.
Yes.
So this is what I found between these collaborations, between the conferences.
Yeah. And that brings me to the final thing that I would like to ask about, and that is specifically what His Holiness the Dalai Lama calls secular ethics and sometimes called universal ethics.
Yes.
And I know that that's also something that you've been very engaged in. And can you say something about the value of that?
Secular ethics, I used to tell my friends, recently, sometimes I use the word religion, I don't know. But I feel that is the new religion. So that is the new religion that is going to come to this world. And everyone in this world will have no hesitation to embrace it, to accept it. That is going to be the new religion for the next century. And so whether anybody accepts that or not, whether any particular faith is against or not, it doesn't really matter. But that is going to be the new religions, or at least that is going to be the new techniques or the new kind of educations, a part of our everyday life. If we are going to live in the next few centuries happily, in a calm way, and going to preserve our planet, that is the only solution that I see. So that is very important. But the foundation of all this universal ethics is actually grounded on one very important principle, which is that in all the humans that we have on this planet, we have so many differences. As we were discussing over the days. As soon as you are born, so when you fill up your forms, they ask you what caste in India sometimes, or in other parts of the world, they ask what caste you are, which country you are, what language you speak, what religion you are. So the divisions started from the day one. You were brought into this world. So before that, you don't have any kind of that. You're only human at the time. But as soon as you were born, and all these divisions started to happen, and that is really bad for commonness. So, but that is something fact that we have all over this world. So different faiths, different communities, and East or West, and all these things happens. So, but His Holiness always says that do not pay importance to the differences. That is what he calls secondary differences, but pay more importance to the primary similarities. Primary principle that we all shared qualities is a better word. Primary shared qualities that we all have. So this is a very important message.
Like our common humanity.
Yeah, common humanities, what human values that we have. We have to learn to live with differences, but we have to learn to appreciate our similarities and common human qualities. And it is not something like a story, but all the basic human nature is compassionate. And compassionate and loving kindness is a quality that is present in all humans, irrespective of where you belong, which country you comes from, what language you speak, doesn't really matter. So we have to walk towards secular ethic is completely based on that qualities. So secular ethic, I think, is something like there's already the small fire of human qualities in all the humans all over the world. Secular ethic is adding some fuel to it and make it grow further. It's something like watering the seed, which is already been sprouting, but you are just adding more water so that it grows further.
Strengthening the qualities.
Yeah, enhancing it in all and finding the commonalities between all people. Any kind of, when you carry your religious identity or when you carry your caste tag, you actually create divisions in some way.
Yeah.
But when you bring secular ethics in that way, everybody finds a common ground, find a mutual place where you all are accepting the reality. So I think that's so important. So that is also what I have been really working towards. And after I finished my studies, one of the commitments that I wanted to make personally is to work further on this and how I can start this in schools in India, in remote places. And one of my own kind of thinking is that I really do not care much about what adults do. Because I think their mindset is kind of
they're lost already.
Kind of lost, or so you cannot really do much. So if you want to bring changes, everlasting changes, you have to start from children. So that's where we have to focus, especially at the primary level.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been also thinking of. And after 1 year, so I wanted to explore even further in what way we can do that in a complete secular way. So this is what I feel.
Wow, I think that's a very promising message for the future.
Thank you.
It's teaching those things to children to create a better world.
Of course, yes. I think that's our responsibility.
Yes. So with that, I just have to thank you so much for taking the time, for coming to Sweden, and I wish you all the luck in making a reality of the vision of teaching those kids in the future. That's fantastic.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, your points covered?
No, that doesn't matter.
Okay.